Picture this. It's 1526, and somewhere in the dusty plains of northern India, a man named Babur is probably wondering if conquering an entire subcontinent was really worth leaving his comfortable life in Central Asia. The morning mist clings to the Yamuna River as his soldiers sharpen their swords, the metal singing softly against whetstones. They don't yet know they're about to birth an empire that will stretch across centuries, one that will build monuments to love, create poetry that still makes hearts ache, and eventually crumble under the weight of its own magnificence. The Mughal Empire didn't arrive like thunder. It whispered into existence through the dreams of homesick warriors and the ambitions of displaced kings. Babur, descendant of both Genghis Khan and Tamerlane, carried with him not just cannons and cavalry, but gardens. Yes, gardens. While other conquerors carved their names in blood, this man planted roses and wrote poetry about his longing for the melons of Fergana. There's something beautifully human about an emperor who conquered India but never stopped missing the fruit from his homeland. Under Akbar the Great, the empire found its soul. Picture the evening court in Fatehpur Sikri, where oil lamps cast dancing shadows on red sandstone walls. Akbar, barely literate but possessing a mind sharp as Damascus steel, would gather Hindu pundits, Sikh gurus, Jesuit priests, and Islamic scholars around the same table. They'd debate until dawn, their voices rising and falling like music, while servants padded softly across marble floors, refilling cups of rosewater sherbet. This was radical hospitality in an age when religious differences usually meant religious wars. The scent of jasmine drifted through latticed windows as empire builders discussed the nature of God, truth, and whether it was possible to create heaven on earth. Shah Jahan transformed grief into architecture, pouring 22 years and the treasury of an empire into white marble. The Taj Mahal rose like a prayer made solid, its dome catching the first light of dawn and holding it like cupped water. Workers from across the known world, Persian calligraphers, Italian stonecutters, Turkish dome builders, lived in temporary cities around Agra, their children playing in the courtyards while their fathers carved eternity into stone. At night, by lamplight, you could hear the tap-tap-tap of tiny chisels working inlay patterns so intricate they seemed to breathe. All of this for Mumtaz Mahal, a woman who died giving birth to their 14th child, whose husband loved her enough to make the world remember her name forever. But empires, like people, grow old. By the time Aurangzeb sat on the peacock throne, the magic was curdling. The emperor who expanded the empire to its greatest geographical extent also planted the seeds of its destruction. His orthodox policies created enemies where his ancestors had made allies. In the Deccan Highlands, a brilliant warrior named Shivaji was teaching the world that even the mightiest empire could be undone by clever men who knew every cave and hilltop of their homeland. The sound of Maratha war drums echoed through mountain passes where Mughal armies once marched unopposed. As the 18th century dawned, the empire became a beautiful ghost, still magnificent in its palaces but hollow at its heart. Provincial governors declared independence, taking their armies and treasuries with them like feudal lords dividing a kingdom. Into this chaos sailed ships flying the colors of trading companies, Dutch, French, Portuguese, and most fatefully, British. The East India Company arrived as merchants, their clerks wearing white stockings and keeping careful ledgers. They spoke of commerce and mutual benefit while their soldiers drilled with European precision on coastal forts. Robert Clive's victory at Plassey in 1757 was won not through superior numbers but superior bribery. The Bengal Nawab's own general, Mir Jafar, had already been bought before the first shot was fired. Sometimes history turns on betrayal more than bravery, and the Battle of Plassey was decided in secret meetings with bags of silver rather than on the muddy battlefield where young men died believing they were fighting for honor. The company's rule was bureaucracy disguised as benevolence. British administrators, fresh from Oxford and Cambridge, arrived in Calcutta with their leather-bound law books and Victorian certainties about civilization. They built railways that connected markets but divided communities, established English schools that created a new class of Indians who could quote Shakespeare but felt strangers in their own land. Lord Macaulay's education policy aimed to create a class of persons, Indian in blood and color, but English in taste, in opinions, in morals, and in intellect. The irony is delicious. They succeeded so well that they eventually trained their own replacements in the art of resistance. The Sepoy Mutiny of 1857 began. With whispers about cartridges greased with cow and pig fat, but it erupted from a century of accumulated grievances. In Meerut, Indian soldiers who had served the company faithfully for decades suddenly found themselves labeled rebels for refusing to bite bullets they believed were designed to destroy their souls. The uprising spread like wildfire across northern India, from Delhi's Red Fort to the besieged residency in Lucknow, where British families listened to bagpipes playing through smoke and cannon fire. When the Crown took direct control from the company in 1858, Queen Victoria's proclamation promised Indians equal treatment as British subjects. The reality was the Raj, a glittering imperial system where Indians could aspire to clerkhood but never true partnership. Yet within this system grew the seeds of its own dissolution. Gandhi, trained as a lawyer in London, returned to India with dangerous ideas about civil disobedience and salt. The spinning wheel became mightier than the sword, and fasting proved more powerful than fighting. August 15, 1947, arrived at the stroke of midnight, as Nehru spoke of India awakening to life and freedom. But freedom came with partition's terrible price, millions crossing borders in opposite directions, carrying their lives in cloth bundles, leaving behind graves they would never visit again. The subcontinent was free, but wounded, carrying forward both the beauty of its imperial past and the hope of its democratic future, like evening light holding both the memory of day and the promise of tomorrow's dawn.